Miracles We Have Seen, Chapter 7. This book is being reproduced in audio-video format with the permission of the author, Jack Terry. Miracle in the Chilean Desert. The Atacama is the driest desert in the world. The rains are prevented from falling on this northern Chilean desert due to the cold Humboldt Current that flows northward from the Antarctic. This frigid section of the Pacific Ocean prevents precipitation from falling on the arid Atacama. In 1954, Winona and I and our daughter Deborah arrived in Arica, the northernmost city of Chile. This once small fishing village, located near the Peruvian border, was now a bustling city due to it being a free port. Buyers and tourists from Bolivia and Peru arrived here in great numbers to purchase tax-free goods from around the world. We arrived during that time and found that it was virtually impossible to find space for our mission work. All available buildings had been purchased or leased. Furthermore, to compound the problem, the senior missionaries, the Boyd Skinners, had to return to America. This left us and the McFarlands as novices in a strange city and culture. It looked hopeless. Perhaps we would have to return to the U.S. as failures after only 2 months on the mission field. To make matters worse, Winona and I were expecting our second child, Stephen, who would be born in a matter of weeks. What could we do? The history of the inhabitants of this part of Chile is about a race of Indians called the Araucanos, thus the name Arica. These warriors were brave and relentless and never conquered by the Spaniards. They were renowned for their capacity to endure extreme hardship without surrendering to the European conquistadors. This made our job much harder, in that they were steeped in their form of religion, an admixture of paganism and Catholicism. What were we to do? We had very little to do since we spoke virtually no Spanish, so we decided to pray. Why not? We had no other alternatives. So, every night, Carlisle and I drove out into the Atacama Desert in our four-wheel drive Dodge Power Wagon and prayed. Nothing happened. We continued to pray every night under the clear skies. Wild stars shone down upon us. The Southern Cross, a bright constellation, glittered above our heads. Then one night it happened. It was perhaps the 40th night that the miracle happened. There was a sound of rumbling around us. We heard the sound of metal clashing. The desert around us began to shake. This region of Chile experiences many earthquake tremors. We jumped out of our power wagon and fell to the sand on our face. We prayed with great intensity. Soon the sounds subsided. All was peaceful and quiet. We drove quickly back into the city of Arica. We were full of questions. Carlisle was an evangelist with the Church of the Nazarene. I had a similar conservative background. I knew very little about miracles of this nature. We were terribly excited. We did not know what had actually occurred. We did agree that something wonderful had happened. We believed that God had heard our prayers. Soon we saw strong evidence that God had broken through the spiritual bondage that surrounded us in Chile. The next night was our Wednesday night prayer meeting. For the past few weeks, the services had been without a minister. Pastor Skinner and family had returned to America. Suddenly, I felt a strong urgency to preach the word. That would be impossible. I had only been in the country for a few weeks. My knowledge of Spanish was quite scanty. I knew, however, that I must preach that night. I could scarcely believe the powerful impulse in my spirit that said, I must share the word. The people came. They sang songs as usual and gave a few testimonies. My heart was pounding. How could I preach? I was not literate in the Spanish language yet. I was totally unprepared. I went to the pulpit and opened the Bible. I read the scriptures in Spanish. Then I actually began to preach. The words and phrases filled my mind and mouth. I understood. They understood. I gave an altar call. People came forward to receive Christ. It was a wonderful night that I could never forget. The people came. They sang songs as usual and gave a few testimonies. My heart was pounding. How could I preach? I was not literate yet in the Spanish language. I was totally unprepared. I went to the pulpit and opened the Bible. I read the scriptures in Spanish. Then I actually began to teach. The words and phrases filled my mind and mouth. They understood. I gave an altar call. People came forward to receive Christ. It was a wonderful night that I would never forget. The demonic stronghold had been broken. In days to come, other doors were opened. Later, we found better facilities and new outreaches. Then new churches were built. Today, a theological seminary is operating in Santiago, the capital city, as an outgrowth of the Arica Church. This great movement is currently known as the Iglesia del Nazareno de Chile, the Chilean Church of the Nazarene. How could this have happened? Was it merely a coincidence? No, I don't think so. I believe with all my heart that God sent a miracle that night in the barren Atacama Desert of northern Chile in 1954. A star-filled night illuminated by the moon and the Southern Cross. That was a night that I saw the armies of heaven overpower the demonic strongholds that had reigned in that region for centuries. It was a night for a beautiful miracle. Great revivals have happened and are happening all across South America. Some of the largest congregations in the world are now found on that continent. Will you pray? Will you give? Will you help to send others? Will you go? Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. Matthew 9:38.